I was 13 when this happened. You know, that age where being home alone feels like the coolest thing ever. My parents had just started trusting me enough to let me stay by myself overnight. The rules were simple. Don't leave the house, don't have anyone over. Fine by me. It meant I could actually play my games without Dad constantly telling me to turn the volume down. This particular night was even better because there was this massive thunderstorm rolling in. I love thunderstorms, always have. Something about them makes being inside feel so much cozier. I sat outside under the awning for a while, just watching the lightning and listening to the thunder get closer. After a bit, I decided to move my Xbox downstairs to the den where Dad's big flat screen and Bose speakers were. That setup was off limits when my parents were home, so this was my chance. The den was perfect. Half a flight down from the main floor, level with the backyard with its own door leading outside. I was deep into Black Ops, playing online with my buddy Cody through my crappy old headset. The storm was getting intense outside, rain pounding the windows. For a 13-year-old, it was basically the perfect night. Then, the doorbell rang. It was past 9, and my first thought was maybe my parents came home early, but they had keys. Why would they ring the bell? I told Cody someone was at the door. He said I should go check it out. I paused the game and headed upstairs to the front door. "Who's there?" I called out. Biggest mistake I could have made. A man's voice came from the other side. "I need to use a phone." I froze. Didn't answer. Just went back downstairs, but the damage was done. Whoever was out there now knew someone was home. When I told Cody, he was like, "Yo, what the hell?" He agreed I shouldn't open the door, but then the doorbell rang again. "Just ignore it," Cody said. So I did. After that second ring, everything went quiet. I started to relax, thinking whoever it was had given up and left. I got back into my game, feeling safe again. That's when I heard something to my right. I looked over and saw the back door closing. A tall man was stepping inside. Not my dad, a complete stranger. I dropped the controller and bolted for the office, the headset cord ripping out as I ran. Made it inside and slammed the door. The second, and I mean the exact second after I locked that door, the handle started shaking violently. The guy was trying to get in. The office had 2 doors. One back to the den, one to the garage. The garage was my only way out, but I just stood there for a moment, heart pounding, listening. The man knocked. His voice was calm at first. "Little boy, I just need to use your phone. I was stranded out in the rain." But his knocks got harder. His voice got louder, angrier. Soon he was pounding on the door and screaming, "Open the fucking door, you little shit!" I thought he was going to break the door down. I had to get out. I hit the garage door button, praying he couldn't hear that loud, slow motor over the storm. The second it was halfway up, I crawled under and ran through the rain to Julian's house a few doors down. Julian was our neighbor. I knew him from when I used to play with his dog Copper. Copper started barking as I rang the doorbell like crazy, looking back at my house hoping I wouldn't see anyone chasing me. Julian opened the door and I basically collapsed into his arms, begging for help. His wife came running from the kitchen. When I told them what happened, their whole demeanor changed. Julian got on the phone with police while his wife tried to calm me down. Felt like forever before the cops showed up. When they did, I told them everything. They asked which door was unlocked. I pointed to the garage. 2 officers went in through the garage. About 5 minutes later, they came out with a guy in handcuffs. They made sure he couldn't see my face as they put him in the patrol car. Asked if I knew him. Of course I didn't know him. Turns out he'd been telling the officers it was his house and I was his son. The guy was clearly drunk or high or just completely out of his mind. His name was John McCarty. Got charged with criminal trespass. My parents pressed charges when they found out, but honestly, knowing this guy would eventually get out and knew exactly where I lived didn't make me feel any safer. At least it seemed random. Don't think he specifically targeted our house or anything. Still gives me chills thinking about it.
I never thought anything truly horrific would happen to me. I'm just an average person living a pretty boring life, so anything out of the ordinary was really, well, out of the ordinary. It was late at night, around 4 a.m., though I can't be totally sure. Everyone else in the house was asleep, my mom and both my grandparents. We'd been getting these major thunderstorms at least once a week for the past couple months. And wouldn't you know it, another one decided to kick up that night. I actually love a good thunderstorm, especially at night when you can sit by the window and watch the lightning. But there's something about the wind during storms that's always creeped me out. Maybe it's how it can go from soft and gentle to absolutely deafening in an instant. Wind just gives me the creeps, I guess. This particular storm was one of the worst we'd had in a long time. It sounded like someone was throwing rocks at my window all night. But I was enjoying it while browsing Reddit on my phone. Then suddenly, boom, power went out. It was a little creepy, but I didn't really mind since I had data and decent battery life. Kept browsing for a while until I started getting tired. Figured it was time to put the phone away and get some sleep. I placed it on my nightstand and rolled over. Must have passed out pretty quickly because the next thing I remember was waking up to this eerie silence. Just soft wind outside. The rain had stopped. I rolled over to get more comfortable because my side was killing me, and that's when I realized how incredibly thirsty I was. Tried to fall back asleep, but my mouth was just too dry. Had to get some water. I sat up, grabbed my phone and turned on the flashlight so I could make my way to the kitchen. But as soon as I opened my bedroom door, this blast of freezing cold air hit me right in the face. It was absolutely freezing in the living room. I quickly threw on a sweater and kept going toward the kitchen. The closer I got to the kitchen, the louder the wind became and the colder it got. I walked in, grabbed a glass from the cupboard, and started filling it up at the tap. That's when I glanced around and noticed something weird. The door to the patio was wide open. Obviously, this freaked me out. How could that happen? I ended up convincing myself that my grandfather must have left it open earlier and just forgotten about it. I walked over to the sliding door, glanced over my shoulder out of paranoia, then slid it shut and locked it. Then I fast walked back to my room, just in case. Got back into bed with my glass of water and flashlight in hand. I was able to calm down enough to turn off the flashlight and try to sleep. But something inside me just wouldn't let go of the possibility that there might be someone in my house. I got back out of bed and moved my desk chair in front of the door, trying to barricade it. Then I checked the closet again just to be sure. Finally laid back down and kept the flashlight on as kind of a nightlight. Then the most disturbing thing that's ever happened to me occurred. I felt a slight bump from under my bed, heard the bed springs creak. That's when I realized, like an absolute idiot, that I hadn't checked under my bed. I felt like I was gonna throw up. Slowly, I leaned over the side of my bed and peered underneath. What I saw will haunt me for the rest of my life. An extremely thin woman with bloodshot eyes and yellow teeth was staring back at me. She was smiling this ungodly grin that I still can't get out of my head. She just stared at me for at least 3 seconds while my brain tried to process what I was seeing. Then, I swear to God, she cackled like a witch. My whole brain was screaming, "Nope," and I leapt out of bed, toward my door, moved a chair as fast as possible, and sprinted down the hall to my grandparents' room. I banged on their door as loud as I could while yelling for my grandfather. He was out within seconds, and he had a gun in his hand, something he'd never even mentioned having in the house. We ran to my room, him in front, my grandmother and me behind. We just barely caught a glimpse of a white figure running away from my bedroom window. My grandfather fired a shot into the air, presumably as a warning to never come back. We didn't call the police because we figured they wouldn't be able to do anything. We don't have security cameras and had no idea who she was or where she came from. All I can guess is that this woman was dangerously ill and saw my bedroom light on before the power went out. And all I can say is, even if you live in a safe area or trusted community, bad things can and do happen. You always have to take precautions.
It was August when my girlfriend Cass and I decided to head upstate for a little weekend getaway at my family's cabin. Well, we call it a cabin, but it's really just a rustic mobile home. It's got running water, electricity, and a toilet though, so we like to joke that it's luxury camping. The place is tiny, maybe 600 square feet total. 1 bedroom, 1 pull-out couch in the living room, 1 bathroom, and a very small kitchen. Despite being pretty remote, there's actually lots to do there. archery, shooting, dirt biking, off-roading. We had this whole itinerary planned out. Friday was pretty chill, mostly just unpacked, went out to eat, did some grocery shopping, then relaxed. Saturday, we did most of the outdoor activities until it started getting really cloudy. Not just regular clouds either, these were serious storm clouds. You could feel it in the air that something big was coming. We put all our gear back in the storage shed and threw a movie into the DVD player while we cooked dinner. Sometime while we were eating, we heard this sudden torrential downpour hit the roof. Pretty soon there were these loud, thunderous crashes of lightning almost directly overhead. We both love storms, so we decided to go sit outside on the deck under the canopy and enjoy the show while we ate. The view was incredible. Long bolts of lightning constantly lighting up the dark sky, thunder booming almost instantly after each strike. We were right in the heart of it. That's when we heard something out in the woods. It was a voice, a loud voice, calling out something, but we couldn't make out what they were saying. Now, this place is really remote. Hearing any other voices nearby would set off alarm bells under normal conditions, but during a storm like this, it was extremely concerning. I figured it had to be a lost hiker or something. I stepped over to the edge of the deck, getting a little wet from the rain blowing in, and during one of the lightning flashes, I could see far enough to spot the tree line where the woods began. There was definitely a person out there, clear as day. I told Cass, and she instantly freaked out, thinking I was messing with her and telling me to stop. I thought about calling out to ask if they needed help, but something about the whole situation scared me. This was my idea for the weekend. I dragged Cass up here, and I didn't want to ruin the experience by freaking her out. I went back and told her I thought it was just a hiker. She asked if we should offer help, and I said not unless they came knocking on the door. I suggested we go inside, and I kind of nudged her toward the door. But curiosity got the better of me. I went back to the edge of the deck, getting even wetter, and looked around until I spotted something again. It looked like a person, but much closer to the deck now, way closer, maybe only 20 feet away. I kept staring until a quick flash of lightning briefly exposed a man standing there. He was wearing bright colors, almost looked white. But here's what really scared me. He was just standing completely still. He wasn't approaching the deck or anything, just standing there, watching. I went inside immediately and locked the door. Cass saw the worry in my face. My heart was racing and I felt almost nauseous. I'm sure I was stuttering when I said, "I don't know who that is." I watched the worry in Cass's eyes get worse. I did my best to keep her calm, telling her to expect someone knocking, asking for help, said they probably just needed shelter from the storm. It was the longest 5 minutes ever, just sitting there listening to the rain and lightning before we heard and felt footsteps on the deck. Even over the sound of the storm, we could hear them. The cabin doesn't have a doorbell, so we expected a knock. Instead, there was this weird shuffling sound on the other side of the door. It sounded like someone trying to open it. That's when my worry peaked. I think adrenaline kicked in. Cass was already hiding in the bedroom at this point, quietly calling for me to come back there. The noises at the door stopped, but there was never a single knock. I went to the bedroom and told Cass to stay quiet while I checked something. I wanted to look out the window. I went back to the living room, turned off the lamp, took a second to breathe, then yanked the curtain open. I saw the white figure of the man running away from the window, quickly disappearing into the darkness. I didn't know what was going on, but I hoped he'd run away for good. To be safe, I went to check the kitchen window. This one didn't have a curtain. I realized about halfway there that there was a face on the other side of the window. I can see it even through the blur of rain on the window. I yelled at the top of my lungs, "Yo, go away!" trying to sound as scary as possible. They didn't move. Now, I know this sounds cliche, but we don't have Wi-Fi at the cabin, and cell reception is spotty on a good day. During a storm like this, there was no reception at all for either of us. But there was my dad's rifle under the bed in the bedroom. I hurried back to the bedroom where Cass was sitting on the bed, biting her nails, completely on edge. I grabbed the rifle from under the bed and pulled it out of its case. There was already a loaded magazine, thankfully, so I popped it in. Doing this in front of Cass obviously meant I was no longer sugarcoating what was happening. Suddenly, there was a bang at the bedroom window. Something was thrown or someone straight up punched it. Then a second later, another bang from a window in the kitchen or living room. It was more than one person. This had gone far enough. I told Cass to wait in the bedroom. I went to the front door and positioned myself ready to potentially shoot anyone who might rush me. I quietly unlocked the door, mentally prepared myself, then yanked it open and raised the rifle. No one was there. I hurried outside, adrenaline controlling my actions, and spun around to make sure no one was on the deck. Then I went to the stairs and looked down. There was that guy, in bright clothes, standing where he'd been before, apparently trying to look intimidating. He looked up at me. He already knew I was outside, but I doubt he knew I had a gun. I fired the rifle into the air. I heard the guy yell in a deep voice, "Oh shit!" as he ran away into the darkness. I could hear at least two voices fading away, probably communicating with each other. Then it was just the sound of the storm again. I don't know how many people were out there, at least two, maybe three. Could have been teenagers playing some messed up prank, or it could have been some really disturbed people trying to scare us and break in. I don't mess around with stuff like that, though. If anyone had come up that deck while I was outside, I would have shot them. They definitely weren't there seeking help. I'm 100% certain of that. The next day was Sunday, and we packed up and left. There were no signs that anything had been done to my car or the cabin from the night before. I made sure to lock everything up and take anything valuable home this time. Out of all the years my family's owned that place, that was the only encounter like this any of us ever had. It really left a bad taste in my mouth about the place and about being isolated like that. I've been back a few times since with family, but I would never, ever go alone again.